Welcome to another update from the Cayman Hurricane Center on hurricanes Jose, Irma and Katia. And here's Adam with the information.
Thank you very much, David. And on your screen here, we have the strongest hurricane in the Atlantic at present. We have ourselves here Hurricane Irma as it moves through the southeastern Bahamas, starting to make its way towards Cuba, eventually to make its way to Florida. A couple of main points to make to you guys right now. Luckily, Irma has now weakened from its peak. It's no longer a Category 5 hurricane, still a quite very dangerous Category 4 hurricane with winds of 155 miles per hour. The present location, or the location as of the 5 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time advisory, is 21.7 north, 73.8 west, or about 50 miles northwest of the Great Anagua Islands, or 495 miles southeast of Miami, Florida. The present movement is off towards the west-northwest, sort of starting to drift more towards the west, at about 16 miles per hour with a minimum central pressure of 925. Just to give you the updates on the watches and warnings in and around the areas. Storm surge warning is in effect from Jupiter Inlet southwards around the Florida Peninsula to Bonita Beach and the Florida Keys. Storm surge watch in effect for north of Jupiter Inlet to Sebastian Inlet and north of Bonita Beach to Venice. Hurricane warning in effect for Jupiter Inlet southwards around Florida Peninsula to Bonita Beach, Florida Keys, Lake Okeechobee, Florida Bay, Haiti, from northern border to Dominican Republic to Limol, St. Nicholas, southeastern Bahamas, Turks and Caicos Islands, Cuban province of Camagüey, Ciego de Avila, Sanctus Spiritus, and Villa Clara, central Bahamas, northwestern Bahamas. Hurricane watch in effect north of Jupiter Inlet to Sebastian Inlet, north of Bonita Beach to Anne Maria Island, the Cuban provinces of Guantanamo, Holguin, Las Tunas, and Manzanas. Tropical storm warning in effect. Haiti, south of Limol, St. Nicholas to Port-au-Prince, Cuban province of Guantanamo, Holguin, and Las Tunas. Also, to add on the list is small craft advisories for Jamaica, the Cayman Islands, also potential flooding and gusty winds expected in those last two areas as well. As the system passes closer towards that area, the southern half of the system is expected to impact those areas as well. For your specific area in the United States, seek your individual National Weather Service offices for details. For the Bahamas, the central and northwestern Bahamas, you guys should be hunkering down at this point. You guys in the southeastern Bahamas, Turks and Caicos, should still be hunkered down. Do not get out. This is not the time to be out and about. those across Hispaniola, Haiti, Dominican Republic should also remain indoors for the time being till the all clear is given. And for you there in Cuba, should also hunker down. The southeastern tip of Cuba should already be starting to see the effects of Irma, and this will continue through as we move through today and the rest of the weekend. Already, even for areas such as Jamaica, the outer bands are starting to make its way towards the island of Jamaica. The Cayman Islands is expected to see this approach the islands later tonight or this evening. And conditions here in the northeastern Caribbean and Puerto Rico starting to clear out. That is good for them. However, you guys over there should start to hunker down once again for, sadly, Hurricane Jose, which will impact that area again as well in the coming days. Just wanting to point out here, this is the initial forecast track, the forecast cone for Irma. What I will say is that don't pay attention so much to the center line, the point in the middle of the cone. I really don't like the idea of the cone, of the center line or center plots on the cone. One of the key things that people commonly have, the misconception they have about the cone, is that the center line, the points on the cone, is where the storm will go, and that's simply not the case. You know, the system could pass very easily anywhere within the cone, and even to some extent outside the cone, depending on how much of a turning west or north it does go. May even stay south of the cone here, end up on the west coast of Florida, you know, go through the Florida Keys and end up making a direct landfall here in Tampa Bay area, or it could go further north, end up making landfall near on the Andros Islands, and then making a landfall here maybe on the Space Coast of Florida. Again, don't really pay too much attention to that center line. The system could pass anywhere very easily within the cone region, and may even go outside the cone. Not too far off, but it could go a little bit outside the cone. Again, an expanding wind field here on Irma. That is the other worry. Even though that the intensity of the system has gone down, the overall size of the system is increasing. And I mean, you could even already see how it is expanding its overall coverage over a larger area, and that will continue to do so as it moves across. So from here, we will go to the next storm. This is the next sort of major system that will, no, it's a major hurricane, and it's making its way towards the eastern Caribbean. The northeastern Caribbean, the Leeward Islands, as you can see, the islands already showing up on the satellite here. And again, here we go, another major hurricane for those islands. These islands up here certainly do not need it at this point, but Mother Nature says, too bad, you're gonna get it. So here we go. So as of the 5 a.m. advisory, it is located at 16 north, 55.3 west, or about 535 miles east-southeast of the northern Leeward Islands. Has a max sustained winds of 125 miles per hour, Moving off to the west-northwest, a minimum central pressure of 957 millibars. And here we go for the watches and warnings. Of recently, the government of France has issued a hurricane watch for the island of St. Bart's. And with that being said, there's a hurricane watch in effect for Antigua, Barbuda, Anguilla, Saint Martin, and as mentioned, Saint Bart. Tropical storm warning in effect for Antigua, Barbuda, Anguilla. Tropical storm watch in effect for Montserrat, Saint Kitts, Saint Nevis, Saba, and Saint Eustatius. So the hurricane watches, obviously meaning that hurricane conditions are possible within those areas, typically 48 hours before this is usually issued typically 48 hours before the anticipated first occurrence of tropical storm force conditions. And that's to until conditions prove difficult or dangerous to work in. Tropical storm warnings means obviously the tropical storm conditions expected somewhere within those areas within 36 hours, and watch means that tropical storm conditions are generally within the 48-hour period. But anyway, in the individual areas there in the Caribbean should monitor their local weather service for further details. System again is starting to look more and more impressive by the hour, and some more intensification could certainly be possible for this hurricane as it moves towards the islands. This is going to cause more damage to the already very devastated, damaged areas in the islands. Hurricane conditions, again, as mentioned, certainly possible in those islands. Rainfall accumulations 6 inches, possibly isolated maximum amount of 10 inches. The rainfall will cause additional threats to life, additional flooding, and to the areas already highly impacted by Irma, will not make conditions for recovery very good, and will damage more areas, if anything. The swells in Jose is expected to affect portions of the Leeward Islands today, and that will cause life-threatening surge and rip currents, potentially some surge as well. Again, it's not looking good for that those islands. So here is the initial forecast cone for the advisory. One thing that I will mention is that the cone has been shifting further south and west over time. I do know that earlier the cone was more up here. Now it's more here. I'm not gonna lie, there are possibilities that this thing could go shift again further, and we could be maybe looking at a landfall somewhere along here before turning west, north, or northwestwards. So the islands there, you know, I'm quite very sorry for you guys. You know, you guys just came out of the watches and warnings from Irma. Now you're right back into it again. Luckily, for the time being anyway, based on the current cone, the strongest of winds, obviously northeast quadrant, And if the cone remains the way it is, at least the strongest of winds will be offshore. But again, if that trend does continue towards the south and west and say landfall across here and then coming up through here, the strongest of winds will be affecting these areas once again. Hopefully not, but we'll see how things progress. And after that, we shall move on to Hurricane Katia, which Katia is also a very much developing hurricane. Definitely a lot better looking than how it was earlier. Started out, the eye is popping out here and there. It is definitely expanding in size, and it is moving at a very, very, very slow speed, pretty much almost stationary, and that in itself is not good, as it will help to intensify the system further. Again, with Katia here, as you can clearly see, definitely very good spiraling bands, almost, I'd say the system's almost sort of starting to look a bit more annular, very round overall, and definitely not looking good for the land masses here, as it could be very much on its way to seeing another major hurricane possibly come out of this before it makes landfall. It has produced some bits of rain for areas of Texas and Louisiana as it has interacting with the frontal system in the area, and it sort of brought extra rainfall to those areas. I'm not totally sure at this time exactly how much rain that it has fallen. However, one thing I will say is that as you could even see here on some of the bands out here, as this thing makes its way towards land, quite a few of these bands could probably slip its way northwards and produce some more rainfall for the areas that have been very harshly impacted by Hurricane Harvey, and they don't need it. But again, looks like it's quite possible that they may receive some there. To give the exact particulars on this, location as of the 4 p.m. Central Daylight Time Advisory, 21.3 north, 95.4 west, or about 170 miles east-southeast of Tampico, Mexico, or about 155 northeast of Veracruz. Maximum winds have increased now to 90 miles per hour. Luckily, present movement is off towards the west-southwest, unluckily at 3 miles per hour. So it's very, very slow moving. Minimum central pressure 977 millibars. At this present time, there is hurricane warnings in effect from Cabo Rojo to Lagunas Verde, tropical storm warning in effect from north of Cabo Rojo to Rio Panuco, and south of Laguna Verde to Puerto Veracruz. And for individual areas, check your local weather offices for more details, but those in the warning areas, preparations will be needed to be rushed, as impending tropical storm conditions may make preparations outside dangerous or difficult. So again, preparations need to be rushed to completion. This is expected to bring storm surge as much as 7 feet above the normal tide levels to the coast. and will provide rainfall up to 15 inches and even isolated higher amounts of 25. Obviously, the hurricane force winds expected, and again, with that, the usual swells and surf and rip currents that will occur on the coast as well. So again, a very busy time ahead of us, guys. Lots of stuff out there. There's another area to mention as well. But just before I do, here is the present forecast track for Katia to make a west to west southwest track through landfall. Again, the models are in fair agreement. Again, there's a bit of a spread, so it could go further east, could go further south, but generally should continue as such. And at the time, even though it does not indicate that it would be a major hurricane, the National Hurricane Center is saying that this thing could very well make its way up to a major hurricane just before landfall, and that could prove as a dangerous situation here as well. And it's very concerning, especially with the system moving at a fairly slow speed, will allow it to have time to intensify as it moves towards land. And lastly, to bring up here, we have ourselves another area of interest to take note of, and I will bring it up here in just a sec, but we have ourselves an area of interest, tropical wave that is coming offshore of Africa during this weekend here, and that could intensify and develop and could become Tropical Storm Lee. In the medium long range forecast models, they are indicating that the system will move out into the main development region, possibly take its track more towards the north, which it will move more to open waters. However, it may be a concern for, say, the southwestern Cabo Verde Islands. And yeah, here we go. Here it is. National Hurricane Center is presently giving it a 20% chance of developing over the next 5 days, and those will likely increase as you go forward in time. Again, the tropical wave itself is soon about to approach land. About to approach the open waters, coming off of land, and will start to probably develop around this area here. And for this one, at least for now, based on the model data, luckily this one looks like it will track more northwards and possibly out to sea. Again, it's way too early to have any clear idea on the track, but based on the initial forecast guidance, that is what we have. I want to mention that this is a very, very busy time. Again, we're at the rate that we are with named storms, hurricanes, and major hurricanes, we are doing ourselves a good fair bit above average, considering the fact that our 11th system on average doesn't normally pop around till the end part of November, and the fact that we have surpassed that and we're already in just the early part of September. Again, as I predicted and other agencies predicted, this year will be a very, very busy Atlantic hurricane season, and thus proven so far. And we have ourselves probably a trio major hurricane threat, if not just a double major hurricane threat, We have another system coming out here. 4 systems to pay attention to over the coming weekend and next week. Very sort of unusual. Haven't really seen this much activity in the basin in a while, and this may prove as a dangerous situation. Again, we are in the general peak of the season, usually from late August through the middle to late part of September, the most active period, with the peak of the period around the week of the 10th or week of 20th, somewhere thereabout. And also looking long-term wise, climate-wise, the basin, especially within this general area, looks quite favorable in October, so we will likely be seeing much more activity continue through October and as we go through the rest of the season. So for everyone who's not being affected by these hurricanes, I suggest that you guys keep yourself prepared. If you're not prepared already, prepare yourself now. Got a busy time ahead. So yeah, and for you guys in those warning areas and in the surrounding areas around these storms, I suggest you prepare yourselves, get yourself hunkered down, ready to go for the arrival of these systems. Well, that is pretty much it from me here at Cayman Hurricane Center. I'll be back sometime soon with another update and let you guys know what in the world's going on with all this stuff. So, catch you later.